Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights, everyone. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into a topic that's reshaping how enterprises operate: AI agents and multi-agent orchestration. We're focusing specifically on how this is unfolding in Utrecht, and honestly, the transformation happening there is a blueprint for organizations across Europe. Sam, thanks for joining me. This feels like a big shift from where AI was just a couple years ago.
Absolutely, Alex. And it's not just hype. Deloitte's 2025 survey found that 74% of businesses are actively prioritizing AI spending. What's changed is that we've moved beyond static tools that respond to inputs and spit out outputs. Now we're talking about autonomous digital coworkers that can reason, coordinate with each other, and handle complex problems no single AI could solve alone. That's the fundamental shift.
So when you say autonomous digital coworkers, what does that actually look like in practice? Is this science fiction, or are organizations genuinely building these systems right now?
It's very much real. Picture this. A procurement agent is working on sourcing materials. It automatically coordinates with a compliance agent who's checking regulatory requirements and simultaneously communicates with a budget agent making sure costs align. All three report back to an orchestration layer that ensures everything works coherently. Microsoft, IBM, and Google have all released agent control planes in the last year. They're essentially dashboards for managing this coordination. That tells you enterprises are demanding these systems.
That's fascinating. So Utrecht isn't just watching this happen somewhere else. They're actually implementing it. What makes Utrecht particularly well-positioned for this kind of transformation?
Utrecht has incredible sectoral diversity. You've got a thriving biotech and pharmaceutical cluster, world-class logistics operations thanks to the Netherlands' transportation infrastructure, and sophisticated financial services. Each of these sectors has different pain points that multi-agent orchestration is uniquely suited to solve. The pharmaceutical side, for example, is using agents for drug discovery. A literature analysis agent works alongside molecular simulation agents, regulatory compliance agents, and patent search agents all in parallel.
Wait, so in drug discovery, these agents are actually accelerating the research timeline? That seems like a significant competitive advantage.
Exactly. We're talking about reducing discovery cycles from months down to weeks. And here's the critical part. The agents maintain detailed compliance documentation throughout the process. In pharma, regulatory traceability directly impacts your ability to get market approval. So you're not just moving faster, you're building in governance from day one. That's enterprise-grade thinking.
That brings up something I want to explore. You mentioned governance, and I know the EU AI Act is a big deal here. How does compliance fit into this multi-agent orchestration framework?
This is where things get sophisticated. The best implementations link three things: intelligent agent design, reasoning models that enable intermediate thinking steps, and robust governance frameworks. We call it the agent thinking governance triad. It's not just about automation, it's about augmenting human decision-making through coordinated intelligence that reasons, adapts, and communicates transparently. The EU AI Act requires explainability and auditability, which frankly forces you to build governance in from the start.
So governance isn't a compliance afterthought. It's baked into the architecture from the beginning?
Precisely. And this matters because you need to track why agents made decisions, how they communicated with each other, and what reasoning went into an outcome. That's especially critical in sectors like financial services, where you might have a fraud detection agent coordinating with a regulatory reporting agent. Both need to show their work.
Let's talk about the logistics side for a moment because that feels very tangible. The Netherlands is obviously a logistics powerhouse. How are multi-agent systems changing supply chains?
The Dutch logistics sector operates on real-time decision-making across incredibly fragmented systems. Multi-agent orchestration solves that. You have route optimization agents coordinating with inventory agents, which communicate with supplier agents, all orchestrated by a demand forecasting agent. When a disruption hits, weather, port delays, whatever, the system adapts in real time. That directly impacts margins for logistics operators. It's not incremental improvement, it's transformational.
So these agents are essentially replacing the manual coordination that logistics managers used to do?
Not replacing, augmenting. The human expertise is still invaluable, especially for edge cases and strategic decisions. But the routine coordination, the constant optimization across systems, the real-time adaptation, that's where agents excel. It frees up logistics professionals to focus on exception handling and strategy rather than firefighting disruptions.
I'm curious about the financial services angle, because that sector has always been risk-averse when it comes to new technology. How are financial institutions approaching this?
They're approaching it carefully, but seriously. Financial institutions need agents that don't just process data, they need to reason about risk and context. A fraud detection agent coordinates with a regulatory reporting agent, and both are feeding into the same orchestration layer. The reason this works for banking is that you get explainability built in. You can audit the agent's reasoning, which regulators demand.
So explainability is actually a feature, not a burden.
In this architecture, yes. When agents communicate transparently and document their reasoning, it actually builds trust with regulators. It also reduces the risk of unforeseen failures because you can trace the logic. That's a massive difference from black box AI models.
So if someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, this is compelling, but where do we start? What does an AI readiness assessment look like?
You start by mapping your organization's pain points against agent capabilities. Where do you have fragmented systems that require manual coordination? Where would transparency and auditability improve decision-making? Which processes involve specialized expertise that could be codified into agent behavior? Once you've mapped those, you can prioritize pilot projects. Start with something high impact but lower risk. Maybe a procurement workflow or a simple supply chain coordination problem.
And then scaling from there?
Yes. You learn from the pilot, refine your orchestration approach, and expand to more complex multi-agent systems. The key is building your governance framework as you scale, not trying to retrofit it later. And honestly, that's where a lot of organizations stumble. They chase automation without thinking through governance.
Let me push back a little here. This all sounds wonderful, but what are the actual risks? What could go wrong with multi-agent systems?
Good question. If agents aren't well orchestrated, you can get conflicting decisions or agents working at cross purposes. Imagine a budget agent deciding to defer spending while an inventory agent simultaneously requests emergency procurement. Poor orchestration creates chaos. You also risk agents learning from bad data or biased training sets, which compounds when multiple agents are involved. And there's the coordination complexity itself. More agents means more points of failure unless your orchestration layer is robust.
So the orchestration layer is critical infrastructure, not something you can bolt on later?
Absolutely. It's the nervous system of your multi-agent system. If it fails or makes poor decisions, everything downstream suffers. That's why governance matters so much. You need monitoring, auditability, and the ability to override agent decisions when necessary. It's augmented intelligence, not autonomous intelligence without human oversight.
What's your sense of where Utrecht organizations should focus their efforts in 2026?
I'd say there are 3 priorities. First, assess AI readiness. Understand where multi-agent systems create genuine value for your business. Second, build or hire the expertise to architect orchestration frameworks properly. Third, engage with the governance and compliance piece early. The organizations that treat AI agents as move fast and break things initiatives will struggle. The ones that integrate agents with thoughtful governance will pull ahead.
One last thing. Is this a Utrecht story or a Europe-wide story?
It's Europe-wide, but Utrecht is particularly well-positioned because of its sectoral diversity and the EU AI Act's European base. Organizations here have a slight advantage. They're building compliant systems from the start, which will serve them globally. That's a genuine competitive edge.
Great insights, Sam. Folks, this is just the beginning of the conversation around AI agents and multi-agent orchestration. For a deep dive into frameworks, implementation strategies, and sector-specific examples, head over to etherlink.ai and check out the full article. You'll find details on governance approaches, real-world use cases, and a practical roadmap for assessing your organization's AI readiness. Thanks for listening to EtherLink AI Insights.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Great conversation.